Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Grand Cruise Astrology. My name is Clayton Cruz, and today I'm going to talk about the full moon in the sign of Aquarius at 11 degrees. So, I haven't done a video in a little while. I was on a road trip. I had to get out and move around. It was the Sagittarian in me. I had to get out and go on a road trip. So, I'm back, and I'm going to do this video. A lot to talk about. So, let's get started. So, the full moon in the sign of Aquarius, happening on August 3rd. So, what is this? Well, if we look at the new moon that we had at 28 degrees Cancer, that was the second new moon that we had in the sign of Cancer. So, Cancerian energy had a really big theme. Not only that, but we also had a Mercury retrograde in Cancer. So, there was a lot of emphasis on Cancerian energy, which has to do with family, loyalty, emotional security, emotional expression, right? That's the moon's powerhouse, actually, is in the sign of Cancer. So, two new moons there created two opportunities for seeds of expression uh, when it comes to emotional expression and emotional connections, right? It has a lot to do with caretaking and being cared for. And there was just a lot of this theme around for the last, few couple of months, right? That was there. And so, now, with this full moon, it is the final expression of the new moon that we had at 28 degrees. The last new moon that we had at 28 degrees Cancer was more about emotional maturity and bringing some kind of culmination conclusion to what was started with the first new moon in Cancer at 0 degrees with the eclipse. That happened back in late June, I believe. Yeah, so and we had a new moon then, and we had another new moon a month later in 28 degrees Cancer, which was sort of uh, it was bringing some more time, thought, and maturity into the expression of the Cancerian energy. So here we are with the final new moon, which of the Cancerian new moons. This is the full moon expression of the last new moon at 28 degrees. So what is this one? This is a full moon in the sign of Aquarius. Okay, so at 11 degrees. So again, the new moon is about the sun and moon conjunction. Sun and moon are on the same page. It's like an unconscious seed that comes into an expression throughout the month until you get to the full moon 2 weeks later, where it's fully seen. It's coming into consciousness. That seed comes into form, and we see it. We see that which was hidden and sort of underlying subconscious, instinctual, becomes conscious and seen and expressed, and we can act on it, and it comes in our conscious awareness. So, what is coming into our conscious awareness with this full moon in Aquarius? Um, we have the sun, which has moved out of the sign of Cancer, and we have the moon, which is over opposite the sun, because sun moon oppositions are full moons. And so it's actually very similar in a lot of ways to what we had with the new moon. Okay, because we had the new moon at 28 degrees Cancer, and although the sun and moon were together, we had Saturn directly across from it at 28 degrees Capricorn, which put some attention on reality, a larger reality beyond what was personal for us. Okay, that's what we were dealing with the seed of the new moon. The full moon, what's coming into expression, is very similar with one key difference, and I'll get to that in a minute. But the Leo Aquarius opposition, in a lot of ways, is very similar to the Cancer Capricorn opposition, only because in place of Saturn this time being across from the sun and moon, we have the sun across from the moon, and the moon being in the sign of Aquarius. So that's a lot to say. It's a lot to take in, but just understand that this full moon is going to have an outlet for expression, unlike the new moon, which seemed a little bit hemmed in, and we had to bring a little bit more time and poise and thought into our emotional expressions, anything that was personal to us, anything that was subjective. We had to put a little bit of that Saturnian flavor on it. We couldn't just come right out and say it and feel it and be it without expecting some kind of um, negative consequence or polarity or lack of movement, right? It just would have fell flat, right, with Saturn being across. So this time we are, with the full moon now coming into full expression, we are still having to account for a larger construct, but it's different this time. So the sun in Leo um, is about self. The sun went into Leo, think about, it's about 10 days ago. So the sun in Leo is about self. It's about ego. It's about behavior. It's about action. It's about the part of you that is seen in the conscious world. Just think of the sun. The sun rules the sign of Leo. So it's the lion, right? King of the jungle kind of thing. And so king, queen, whatever. It just has to do with being on top, right? Being seen, being the sun. Think about the sun. It's the center of the solar system. Everything revolves around it, right? And so that energy is there, right? We're for the this particular time period where we have the sun in Leo, right? For 28 days, 29 days, whatever it is, we have um, attention on we have our personal attention on ourselves, right? There's a part of us that's very in our bodies and wanting to express that Leo energy, wanting to be seen, right? And of course, this is all going to depend on your personal chart where things are as to how this energy is expressed or if it's expressed at all. However, as a collective, there's sort of this air of um, wanting to be seen and wanting to be heard and wanting to be on stage, right? And so, it can, the Leo has its negative side, its positive side is leadership and very strong authority, right? But in a very bright and magnanimous kind of way. The shadow side can be a little bit pompous and haughty. And so, that could be with us right now. It's the time of the year for it. Let's just say that, because this happens this time every year with the sun. Now, with the full moon going across from it, it's going to bring some reflection for the few days around the full moon of August 3rd. And we're going to be building up to that. So it's going to be building up to this mirror reflection of the moon. The sun is saying, yes, me, and look at me. And the moon is saying, yes, but, within the reflection of a larger dynamic, a larger group container. Because Aquarius is the sign of group. It's the sign of not individual, but of collective, of vision beyond self, right? So when you put the moon in Aquarius, you're bringing the moon's emotional, intuitive feeling faculties into the sign of Aquarius. So the moon in Aquarius, it's not really at its best, right? The moon likes to express and to feel, right? And to express its emotion without resistance, to connect on an emotional level without having to curb itself, right? Well, in the sign of Aquarius, that expression can be a little challenged because Aquarius is a very cool, dry, objective energy. It's very futuristic. It's very innovative, and it does account for group, and it does. The moon in Aquarius has compassion in the larger framework, but not on an individual level. It's more of a systemic compassion. And so, a positive expression of the lunar Aquarian energy is humanitarian efforts, all right? But when it's filtered through Aquarius, that humanitarian compassion and empathy is more removed, and it's more about instead of going and intending for the needy, which is a very lunar expression. When it's in the sign of Aquarius, it's more like, okay, well, why don't I write the checks instead to my, a cause or whatever, or join a group that is involved in something. It has a more detached feel to it because Aquarius sees things in a very utilitarian, uh, holistic, group oriented kind of way. And so that's the energy that's reflecting back to the sun, right? That the sun is in this self kind of me first energy and look at me. And there's a lot we can do with individual uh, leadership and expression and being on stage. And the moon in Aquarius reflects back. But yeah, like I really see no value in an individual. I mean, the individual only has value in relation to what it can do in respect to the larger group, right? That's what the moon is saying back to the sun. So, in a full moon, anytime you have a full moon, there is, for that period of time, for that few days leading up to it and a little bit afterward, you have a time period of trying to integrate the sun and the moon energies, right? And trying to find a middle ground, trying to find compromise. That's what oppositions are about, right? And so, with this full moon, though, however, we have another player involved directly aspecting both of these, which is Uranus in the sign of Taurus. So that can be extremely positive, actually, because it's in a square aspect. Now, squares can be about tension. Squares aren't comfortable, okay? But if the energy is used, if we tap into it and use it effectively, it can create positive outcome beyond anything we could have done just with the sun and moon alone asking us to compromise, right? When you have a square, T square, which is what this is called, because it's in the middle, 90-degree angle to both the sun and the moon. When you have a T square, it creates an opportunity for integration of the sun and the moon in a creative way that's not about compromise necessarily, but more about creativity. Okay, so and just on the face of it, thinking about how can we use that Leo energy of the sun and that is very self first, and the lunar energy of the moon, which is in Aquarius, which is about collective, and how can we bring that together? Well, a creative way to bring it together is to be on stage for the collective, right? For other people, to speak for solutions that are larger than self, right? And to be to express our individual flair, right, in the context of a cause that's bigger than us. That is the compromise of the two energies just on the face of the sun and the moon opposition. However, with Uranus involved and at play, that expression could get very domestic, okay? Because Uranus is in the sign of Taurus, okay? Uranus and Taurus is probably, I would say, probably the most difficult place you could put Uranus, because Uranus is the planet of fast, sudden, revolutionary, innovative change at the speed of light, right? It rules, in mythology, it rules lightning, right? Now, I've actually looked at a lot of charts of people struck by lightning, and there's, without a doubt, Uranus is involved in all of these. Is a very prominent player in electricity, all right? So if you use that imagery, you can kind of understand a little bit about what this energy is, Uranian energy is. It's very fast, very sudden. At times when that energy is in our lives, it can be disappointing. It can be shocking. But the intention of Uranian energy is always to free us up from bonds and situations that no longer serve us. It's about putting the past behind us, right? And creating space to liberate. That is a key word with Uranus, liberation. So it's in the sign of Taurus, which is very steadfast, very thorough, and very solid, but it is not really revolutionary. It is very it's very fixed. It's a fixed sign. It's fixed Earth. It gets very dug in, okay? And that has its value when it comes to building a foundation, building something solid, and creating a solid, tangible outcome, uh, creating a foundation of some kind. However, when it comes time to change, Taurus can be very slow to move, the slowest of any sign. It can get very fixed in its position and very stubborn, right? And so Uranus has been in the sign of Taurus for a couple years now, and it's bringing some sudden shakeup to that space. I mean, you think about lightning, all right, and you think of, which is Uranus, and you think about fixed Earth, which is Taurus, and the imagery that comes to mind is an earthquake. So there have been some rumblings. I mean, this has happened for all of us. You know, it's going to happen in different parts of our chart, you know, depending on where Taurus is located, where Uranus is located in our charts, in our natal. But, you know, in some capacity, some foundations in some area of life are getting shaken up, right? You don't have to look very hard to see that happening right now. So Uranus is doing its work in the sign of Taurus. Now, with this full moon, that is going to come into focus. And when you have a T-square, the opposition represents, with the sun and the moon in this situation, represents the energies you're trying to integrate. The T-square, the planet at the apex of the T-square, 90-degree angle at both these planets, is Uranus. And what does it represent? It represents the arbiter in the situation. It represents where we look to find the union of the sun and the moon, okay? So Uranus is where we're going to find that creative outlet of expression to integrate these two energies. This isn't about compromise between sun and the moon necessarily, between self and other. This is about looking to Uranus in Taurus this time to find a creative solution to it. So what does that look like? Well, just being on the road, I've definitely seen a lot of moving trucks out there. All right, a lot of U-Haul, a lot of this Uranian energy with this full moon is coming into expression. There's a lot of upheaval at a very domestic front, and people are rearranging, reorienting, innovating their living situations to account for that. Now, not everybody's moving, obviously, but a lot of people may be moving their furniture around or digging in the garden or changing things up on a very domestic way in some area of their life because Uranus is coming into focus. And that's sort of what this full moon is bringing. It's bringing Uranus into the pinnacle position to create the integration of the sun and the moon. So it's like I was saying, self and larger dynamics. It could be that we are making some fundamental day-to-day, concrete, practical changes in our lives that support us as individuals and our individual behavior, and yet account for the larger constraints of the group. Having compassion and understanding for the larger group. And now when I say group, whether that's collective or, you know, the society that we live in, or whether that's, you know, family, more likely to be friends. This is more of a big picture kind of energy, and accounting for what we need to make changes in a practical sense in our lives to account for what's happening. You know, this could be very much COVID related, right? What practical day-to-day changes do I need to make in order to move forward in the new world that we're living in? Because Aquarius is about, and we've had a lot of energy in Aquarius. Saturn was in there for a while. Mars went through there, and during, you know, March and April, and that had a lot to do with creating this new container that we're all being kind of forced to adjust to and live in, right? So now with this full moon, it's hearkening back to, okay, what practical personal changes do I need to make in my life? The sun is about action. The sun is about conscious thought, right? This isn't about, you know, unconsciously kind of, planting the seeds for what could change. This is about taking action and actually doing something about it. And with Uranus there involved, this could be very sudden. This could be very quick. It could be very new. It could be very exciting. Exciting, only in the sense, only in the way that we are moving with it and not resisting it. And that can be very difficult when you're talking about Taurus, because this is shaking up foundations, right? Shaking up some core foundations that are very dear to us and really trigger our using the chakra system, our lower chakra security needs, right? So there's some shakeup happening there. This full moon is bringing awareness to that. So there could be action taken in order to reinvent ourselves, innovate our day to day, so that we have something going forward that is again solid, but in a very new way, a very different way. It's upgrading the foundation, upgrading the foundation. What you could say with this T square. Now, that's pretty much the long and short of it. I would just say the astrological advice with the full moon itself is to just use the energy, understand that it's there to be used, and to go with it. Be very careful not to dig in too much, because if you dig in, if you resist, it persists, and it gets more difficult, and it creates a mountain out of a molehill. It creates something. It eventually will break, right? And so you want to kind of go with it as best you can, right? And to move with the rumblings and get shooken out where you need to be, right? Instead of being, and kind of go with it instead of being, forced, right? Because that's what will happen if we dig in too much, right? So that's that with the full moon. Now, the reason I say take action is we also have Mars in a very loose, positive aspect to both the sun and the moon in the sign of Aries. So Mars is in Aries. It's making a 60-degree sextile to the sun, to the moon in Aquarius, and it's making a 120-degree trine to the sun. So that's a nice harmonious triangle that it's making with those two planets. And what that says, very loosely, it's bringing some energy that we can use to make changes for ourselves in a very personal, day-to-day, fundamental way, whether that's moving or rearranging things or whatever. We have the physical energy, the drive, the will to do it. There's a harmonious angle to Mars to make things happen. And that is creating a very loose connection to the sun and moon. So I do see, though we are having some rumbling, some shakeups, maybe some tension, some discomfort around making some tough choices around security, perhaps. I do see with this Mars harmonious energy, I think the energy is going to be there to do it. So go with it. I would say with this energy, try to tap into the excitement of Mars and that solo kind of Mars and Aries energy. I mean, I get like Han Solo, right? I don't know. Just go out on a whim a little bit. Maybe take some chances, to make things happen, right? Make some things happen. This is in a personal way. Changes to your life that'll be productive going forward. Okay. That's kind of a lot to tie into this full moon. It's kind of a big full moon, but it is creating opportunity for expression. This is not about the new moon, whereas we were sort of feeling like we were having to wait and take our time and maybe hold off on saying everything that we felt and taking action. Now it's about taking action. Now it's about making the changes. This is very, very, very personal. I mean, this is a collective reading, but I think this is very much about individuals making changes for themselves so that they can better orient themselves in relation to the collective in this sort of new dynamic that we're living in post-COVID and, socially and everything else that we have going on, right? So that's that. That's the full moon. That's about what I got for that. Now, one thing I would like to mention with the Uranus being in Taurus, with fixed signs, we have the fixed T square that I was talking about. It's creating that tension. Fixed signs. Okay, so fixed signs can be very stubborn and immovable when they feel that they are being imposed upon. So, with this energy, for ourselves, looking internally, try to tap into that guidance of change that comes from within, that really inspires us to make changes on our own behalf, so that those changes are not imposed upon us. We can either express them internally from within and ride the energy that is coming up within us. But if we resist it, which is can be a temptation with fixed excuse me, with fixed signs, if we resist it, then change will be forced upon us. So try to take initiative as best you can to let that change be internal, going outward instead of it outward imposed upon us, right? That also goes for our interactions with people in relation to fixed signs and with fixed energy. We're going to have fixed energy around for the next few days or a week. So the advice with this is, if you need to influence somebody, or you're trying to get something across to somebody, you're trying to get somebody on board with your way of thinking, or acting in a certain way, or doing something, the best approach is to do what you can to help people understand that it was their own idea, right? That's a really good advice for the next few days or a week, is just approach people if you don't try to impose anything on anybody, but do what you can to accentuate in people their own ideas that are in harmony with yours, if that makes any sense. That's a good way to bring a fixed energy around, right? So that's that. Now we have Venus. I'm going to do another video about Venus. So Venus doesn't, as by transit, it generally doesn't have a strong consequential consequence on our lives. It's nice, it can bring out the sun a little bit. It can make your day a little bit better, for a short period of time. It's kind of sweet, It's not a bad. It's a nice aspect, but it's very mild, right? Normally, but again, it has gone retrograde over the last few months and gone direct, and so it's been moving very slowly in the sign of Gemini. So there's been a lot more focus with Venusian energy, right? It's had more consequence, and we've felt that in the way that we've related to one another in a very Geminian way, right? Which can be very casual, right? And how do we relate to the public in a very casual way, given the realities that we're living in, right? These new constraints, right? So we've been dealing with that energy. However, it has moved forward and it has started to speed up, and so it is soon, in the next couple of weeks, it's going to move out of Gemini and it's going to move into Cancer, and in time it's going to have less and less punch. But for now, it still has some punch. It's not quite back up to full speed yet, even though it has left shadow. But it's going to be going over the North Node. So that is going to bring in an influx of energy. I'm going to do another video about that. It's also going to be going over the 0-degree eclipse point that we had in Cancer when we had that new moon solar eclipse. So this would speak to Venusian energy being in play over the next couple of weeks. I'm going to do another video about that. It's not quite in aspect yet. It will be starting the beginning of August. So I'll do another video about that. But just for now, with this full moon, don't resist change. Try to tap into that revolutionary spirit within you to make changes in your own personal life. This is a very personal energy, individual, right? That is accommodating for the larger construct, okay? I'll leave it at that. Look forward to seeing you on the next video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon. Bye.